Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Novel Nana. I'm Bex. Here on this channel, we talk about all things writerly related. If that interests you, consider subscribing. Stick around and we'll get right into the video. Okay, so as many of you know, we are back with another boot camp with Bex. Back to the basics, the building blocks of story episode. So in this episode, which I think we left off with goals last time, and then we did a video on motivation. So I'm using the same whiteboard, and so just kind of ignore that little title right there. But anyway, this is going to be the first video in the conflict section of our boot camp. So, I know that you guys recognize my background, and I'm up a little bit higher than I usually am, but there are boxes and things on my floor. My daughter and her children had recently moved in, so I have stuff kind of everywhere and just haven't got around to finding a spot for it. So, if you see some things in the background, I apologize, guys. Life happens. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So, what is conflict and why do we need it? Well, simply stated, conflict is anything that is in opposition to your character or opposing your character in a way that kind of stops them or stands in their way from pursuing their goal or even reaching their goal. So that is the simplest way I can put it. And why do we need it? Well, simply put, conflict is essential in storytelling. Without conflict, our stories would have no flavor, so to speak, going back to that apple pie or story pie analogy. If you remember in previous videos, I'd explained that conflict is only one of the ingredients in our story pie or our apple story pie. If you considered apples being the goal and maybe the butter being the characters and maybe the sugar was the motivation, well, conflict would be that cinnamon or that spice, that flavor, that kick. That is what conflict does for your story. It kicks it up a notch, right? So it gives a little more flavor, something for the reader to kind of attach themselves to. So conflict is what keeps your readers invested and keeps them caring about your character's pursuit of their goal. It gives them something to root for, your character reaching that goal. So anything that stands in your character's way would be considered conflict. Now, there are different types of conflict, and we're going to be talking about those in another video. But for the sake of today's video, I wanted to try to keep it short and sweet. So we will just say that it basically boils down to internal or external conflict. Most all conflicts will fit under one or even both of those, depending on the circumstance. So my whiteboard here, I have it behind me, and I've basically kind of gone off the top of my head, but I'll go at, oh, goodness gracious, I'll go ahead and read you what I have written down on my whiteboard, just to kind of reiterate. So anyway, again, it's the boot camps with Beck, backs to the basics, and just ignore that it says goals episode 4. I forgot to erase that part. This is the conflict, and this would be video 1 in conflict. So anyway, what is conflict? Why do we need it? Conflict, again, is that opposition to your character and character's goals, or even the pursuit of that character's goal. Okay, and why do we need it? Because without the struggle or the opposition, your character easily reaches or attains that goal too easily. So then the story would lack its stakes, and the meaning and the growth of the character. Without conflict, there isn't any of that. Without conflict, the stories would be mundane. Your readers would not be invested. And might I dare say the story would be boring. Okay. So anyway, we do, as readers, need the conflict in order to care about your story and your characters. So I do have a few examples written down, and it's just something for you to think about. So I'm just going to read it right off my little paper here, and then I will let you guys go, because I know that your time is just as valuable and you have other things to do. But I do appreciate you guys sticking around today and just hearing what I have to say on the subject of conflict. So where would our stories be without conflict? Think about what would have happened if Little Red Riding Hood had set off to Grandma's house and never came across the wolf, and her grandmother never came across the wolf. You would basically have a story about a little girl carrying a picnic basket to her grandmother's house and them enjoying the picnic. I mean, it's still a story, right? It just may not have that flavor, that conflict. So it wouldn't be as interesting. It would be mundane, basically like a snapshot, a day in a life, or a day in the life of this character and her relationship with her grandmother, sharing a meal or a picnic. Okay, so think about the story of the three little pigs. If they just ran to each other's house and no one was chasing them, what exactly would be the point? It would basically be a story about one pig visiting another pig, brother or whatever. And because no one was chasing them or blowing their house down, there would just be basically a story about pigs visiting other pigs. So not really that interesting. I mean, unless you're into pigs, I don't know. Anyway, so then let's think about, what if the boat, the Titanic, what if that story, even though it's in media form of a movie, but let's think about that for a moment, the movie Titanic. So where would that story have been without the Titanic actually sinking? We would have a story of, maybe two passengers just falling in love and, going on the cruise and then, going their separate ways or whatever. It wouldn't be the same interest level there, right? Maybe you could have made it into a love story. I don't know. But again, where's the conflict? You would have to come up with something else to keep your readers interested. Okay, so on to the next example. What if Frodo had been given that ring for safekeeping? And what if maybe in one scenario he just puts it in the envelope and never touches it again, and that's the end of the story? Like, there's no conflict there. So it's not as interesting. Or maybe he was given the ring and he actually goes to Mordor to throw the ring into the fire, and there's no opposition. There's no one standing in his way. There's no one after him. He just tosses it in and goes on back to the Shire. So, where's the conflict? Again, conflict is what keeps it interesting, and it is what keeps us invested as the reader into your story. And it is what makes us root for your character and what makes us care. So that is the end of today's video, and this again was for the Bootcamp with Bex series, the building blocks of story. And so this would be considered conflict, episode 1 for that. So anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I do so appreciate each and every one of you. Let me know what you thought of this little video, and if I summed it up, easy enough for you to be able to understand. Thanks, guys, again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, happy writing. Bye, guys.